climbs off all by itself. It does it itself. Okay?
Yeah, you're right there with me though.
Every time I open the hangar door to go flying, I realize that I'm one of the lucky guys doing something that I dreamt of as a kid.
Larry Lumpkin. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a pilot of P-51 Gunfighter CAF aircraft, and I'm also the president of North American Trainer Association, NAT. Well, I was born in a little town in the southeast Arkansas Delta in the Cotton Patch area, and I grew up there and went to high school there in Marvel, and left Marvel not long after I graduated, went in the Air Force as an enlisted guy.
These men are aviation cadets. A short while ago, they too were average American boys from average American families. In the near future, they will have learned many things. How to pilot a plane, how to navigate, or how to operate a bomb sight. If you're 17, you can enlist in the Air Corps Reserve. You'll be called to training soon after your 18th birthday. Men between the ages of 18 and 26 can go into training immediately.
And was there for 4 years and got out, came to Omaha, Nebraska, where I married my wife, and started flying lessons using the GI Bill, went back to school at University of Nebraska, Omaha, burnt the midnight oil, and got things going there. I learned to fly right here at Epley Field in Omaha, and went all the way through my CFI ratings, and flew corporate until I got hired at United Airlines, and flew 32 years with United Airlines. And as I got involved with the airlines, I was there for quite a while while I wasn't doing GA, and I really, really missed it. And then I made up my mind that, hey, I want to get a tail wheel endorsement, number one, and own a small tail wheel aircraft and get that experience. So I bought a Champ and flew it from Seattle, Washington, all the way back to Omaha, Nebraska. I bought it from a United captain, and flew it back to Omaha, and that reignited my GA love, and I've been going hard with it ever since. I've owned 3 Champs, 2 180s, and then eventually owned an L58, which was over here at the CAF hangar with a bunch of other guys. Well, those guys worked on the Gunfighter, and that led my connection to the CAF initially. I was a good grunt. I could clean cowlings and clean the floor, and I started out at the bottom, and of course General Ursher was flying the airplane at the time, and eventually I became really involved in the wing, became wing leader 2 terms, and in 2000 he pitched the airplane to me. He knew he needed a successor, and that's when we started with the Gunfighter process. that was a Reggieism. He started that from way back, and if you look carefully at the flags we fly, they're 48 star flags because that was what it was during the war, and he was adamant about that, and that's what we continue to do, and it really brings out, you know, a lot of patriotism in folks. They get the biggest kick out of that. It means a lot to people, and you'll taxi by, you know, after you've done your routine or whatever, and you're flying the flag, and you just see people going like this. You know, it means a lot. Appreciating what you have as far as your freedoms, don't take them for granted. And he preached that all the years that I've known him, to everyone, not just me, to everyone. I think that was the message he wanted to get out mostly, is do not take your freedoms for granted. You know, he came from over in Europe, and his dad, you know, beat it into him that you need to appreciate your freedoms. And his dad sent him over to America, you know, to have a better life. And he obviously enjoyed that life. I've had quite a variety of experiences. I've flown P-51 Aces before in my airplane, which was a distinct privilege. And the personalities vary from one end to the other, and most of them are really spry. And as soon as they get closer to the airplane, it's like they become young again. It's amazing, the transformation. You can see them, you know, as they get closer to the airplane, start talking about their stories, and but you can really appreciate the sacrifices when they start telling the stories of seeing friends, you know, die in combat next to them, and seeing the guys in the B-17s bailing out, you know, they're being hit.
Our fighter group would be three squadrons. One would be maybe a high, one would be one side or another side, or watch below. You get near the target area, the bombers all would tighten up their formation. We'd get off to the side of them, and we see them open their bomb bay doors, and then they go over the target area. But it gave me a sense of what those bomber crews must have to go through to fly over target, and the shells, explosions going all around them, and the planes getting hit beside them. And I saw one case where a plane got hit and banged over into adjacent plane, and the two planes go down. And we were always supposed to see, if we saw a plane go down, say, how many chutes did you see come out? So we would watch. But this place, the two planes went down and no chutes came out. And I think, gosh, how you figure two planes going down, there's 22 guys are going, no chutes coming out. I'd sit off on it and wonder how in the heck did they get those guys go through that time after time again. How did they get those fellows to do that?
It really rings home. And one thing I'll never forget is up in Oshkosh, I had a guy walking around the airplane, and an elderly gentleman, and he didn't say hello, he didn't say a word, he just kept rubbing the airplane, walking around and touching it. And finally I just walked up to him, I said, "Sir, can I help you?" And he said, "No." And he just kept rubbing it. And finally he walked up just behind the wing, looking into the cockpit. I said, "Would you like to get up and look inside?" He was real hesitant, but finally I convinced him. He got up and he looked inside. He started to cry. He had lost his pilot. He never came home. That really affects you. That kind of thing. That's what we're doing it all. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. You know, if we can't make this something that shines upon the people that have done the most for our country, what else is it for? I mean, it's not all about us. It's about them.
Now our reconnaissance has spotted the Japanese task forces. This is the moment we've been fighting and praying for. Every plane that can fly and every qualified pilot is ordered into the air.
Obviously, without the CAF, I could not experience, flying a Mustang other than through other museums. And I've been privileged to do it through this airplane that Reggie made so well known. The CAF has made that privilege for so many guys. And it's like any organization. It has its challenges, but we have a lot of airplanes, and we're getting better and better about maintaining them. And we're well respected in the museum world. And without the CAF, I wouldn't be here, that's for sure. First off, you have to be asked to fly an airplane. And everybody says, well, I just want to come in and fly the airplane. And, it doesn't work that way. You have to come in and prove yourself. We want to know who you are, where you're coming from. What's your attitude? Attitudes are everything. You want someone to take care of these precious airplanes and preserve them. That's our whole mission: preserve them and display them. And I did the exact path. I came in and I worked and helped wrench on the airplane, helped clean it, and just participated in ground crewing it and supported it. But once you are asked to support an airplane, they call it sponsoring an airplane. You put down a sponsor fee. Each aircraft has a certain minimum dollar for a flying sponsorship. So you put that down, you donate that to the CAF, and then you go through the process to get qualified to fly that particular airplane. And we have check pilots that are designated to check you out in each different type aircraft. And that's the process. And as you gain more time in the airplane, you can start to do air shows And eventually you can start to work on your, if it's an acrobatic airplane, you can do acrobatics. But it's a long process. It's not something overnight like some people think. We could not even operate it without volunteering. Period. Paragraph. It's everything, especially to the CAF, and most museums are that way. The gentleman that is the master mechanic on this airplane has been working on this airplane for 40 years. He's getting up in his years, but he knows this airplane backwards and forwards. And we could not fly the rigorous schedule that we do without him. There's just no way. And we've got another young man that's worked on it a fair amount with him that knows it pretty well. Hopefully he'll come up behind him and go from there and, back up the airplane from that point. But as far as every other thing that goes on, someone's got to sweep the floor. Somebody's got to clean the airplane. Somebody's got to do the administration in the books. Somebody's got to do the administration of advertising. It's there's many fingers that volunteers have to do, and it's not all on one person. One person can't do it all, and that's what really makes this organization click. The volunteerism is not as widespread as it used to be, and I think a lot of that, and I've tried to figure that out in my own head why that is. I think people are working a lot harder for less money. They're spending more time on their jobs for a lot less money. And by the time they have children and school and obligations, it just gets tighter and tighter, compressed for time. Fortunately, a lot of guys that retire will come and help the CAF, and they're a great asset because they have more available time. But in answer to your question, sure, they can go to an air show and help out as a ground crew. A lot of guys will drive to an event. We personally don't do as many shows now as we did, or as we do ride flights, history flights, and that really supports the airplane well. We tour with the B-29 Fifi, the CAF B-29 Fifi, and we complement each other very well. And, you'll go to an event, and we'll pre-sell the rides on their website. But after you get there and people hear the Mustang, the credit card starts coming out. And then it's the same thing with once we draw somebody there, people see us flying around the community, they show up and they'll buy a Fifi ride, So we really complement each other on the tour in that regard. My reaction is this: you cannot drive to the grocery store without risk. You cannot do anything in your life and have fun or enjoy life without risk. Risk is part of our living. And every World War II veteran out there would tell you to go right back and get right back after it, because they died that we could have this freedom. And this proves the fact that we are a free country, and that we have choices, and that we are willing to take risks in order to make things better in our country and enjoy our freedom. We have to live with risks in order to enjoy anything in our lives. Well, we all know what we call AirVenture. We call it Mecca. And that's the bottom line, what we call it. And I can remember going way before I even started flying Warbirds, and just, experiencing the goosebumps like everybody else did when P-51s came by, doing a fast pass, and the T6s. I love to watch the formations in the T6s and the T28s, and everybody, the T-34s. It was just an awesome display, and it's very inspiring. And once I got involved with Warbirds, my initial Warbird was obviously the T6 to qualify in the Mustang. I started flying formation as part of getting my time that I had to build up, and met some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and close friends that I will have for the rest of my life in T6s in formation. And the ultimate place to go was Oshkosh. 30 or 40 of us going up there together and showing our stuff, and allowing the people to really enjoy it as I had done before. So we all know what it means to see these airplanes fly and experience it, and we want to share it with as many people as we can. Oshkosh gives everybody, the spectator, the pilot, everybody, the nation, to be able to see it through means like you provide, that we can all share it together. And it's just like one great big family, and we enjoy it so much. All you can say is what a privilege. My goodness, to have been in a flight to tribute to the guy that started it all, Paul. And he was a visionary, obviously a visionary, a very talented visionary, and got this thing going. He was a heck of a designer, airplane designer, pilot, and to know that I was chosen to help represent the people that were going to honor him in the flyby was frankly a privilege and an honor. I don't know any other way to say it. All you got to do is pick up the phone. I can call Eric Trueblood at Air Corps Aviation, and I can have my part the next day. I can call Jose Flores out at Vintage V12s, and I can have the part the next day. Or I can call Paul Draper over at Roush and get my part generally the next day. everybody knows everybody, and their goals are, thank goodness, is to keep the airplanes in the air. They will drop what they're doing and help you out. And it's very important. If I have friends that have T6 parts that I need, I can call them up. They've got it on the shelf. It's coming the next day. And we do the same thing. We've shared parts when people are down. We've got spares. We send it to them. It's just wonderful. The friendships that I've become, friends with so many people, and they're genuine, and even friendships that that you disagree with or something, that we can work it out. And you really respect people that, if you have an issue with somebody, you can sit down and work it out. To me, you just get closer with them, closer to them, and that's the kind of people I want to be around. Most of the people that are in Warbird business, if they have an attitude, that's what I like about the family. Everybody knows that, it's a risky business, and we respect it, and we don't want to, lose anybody, and that's how we treat it. Oh, it's very, very positively received. I always get acclimates, and everybody comes up and says, this is my favorite airplane. This is my favorite airplane. My reply is, it's mine too. People are always positive, and you'll have some guys come up and say, well, this is really close, but the Corsair is my favorite. I says, I like that one too, but it's a well-known airplane. I think, honestly, if you put it on the ramp with all fighters, the Mustang would probably get the most people come to look at it and recognize it. And I think that's probably it more than anything. They recognize that airplane, because of its publicity more than anything. I've got to say, and be honest, my interaction with the youth around the airplane has all been mostly positive, because the people that are coming to interact around the airplane are already educated. They're at the air show because of the airplanes and because of their interest in aviation. It amazes me when I talk to some young people. They have no clue what a P-51 is. It amazes me. And it amazes me, some adults. I had a guy at a doctor's office the other day, and I had my Gunfighter shirt on. He says, Gunfighter, what kind of airplane is that? I said, it's a P-51 World War II fighter. And, he says, well, what's a B? I said, well, B can be a lot of things. A B-25. Yeah. What's a B-25? But it's amazing to me. This guy was probably in his mid to late 40s. Had no clue about a lot of the airplanes. And, we are failing in our schools not to teach our children this history, in my opinion. And, it's not their failure. They don't know. We just need to educate them better. And that's our whole goal at CAF, is educate more people. I mean, if you have a kid come up and ask you a question, like Reggie always said, Bob Hoover would say, that's a very good question. He always had the patience of Job answering questions to anybody that came up and asked a question. And I'll never forget that as well. Take the time to answer a question. Well, as you know, like it started with Sun and Fun because March is when this thing began, and then things started falling like dominoes. Well, finally, it got to the point where at Dubuque, which was the pre-Oshkosh clinic, we were going to go ahead and have that, but they had some concerns at the facility we were going to have it at Dubuque, so we canceled that. So at that point, a lot of people started saying, you know, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to take the time to set up something and do our own thing. And a lot of guys formed their own clinics, basically, you know, or just more like a fly-in. The guys were going to get together and do some formation flying at XX Airport, and you're welcome to come. And we actually got some pretty good size fly-ins going. And we even conducted some ground schools at one of those, and we just improvised. But it got to the point where everybody says, we need to fly. We're not current, and we're going to do it. And we'll take the precautions we need to take and go with that. And we had to obviously deal with the local laws or restrictions put in place. And that was onerous, to say the least. But for the most part, we have had no issues with, you know, in the environment in which we've operated in. So we started getting clinics going. And our first NATA clinic to really in the Midwest was at Galesburg, Illinois. It was kind of they tried to do a Stearman and T6 combined clinic, and they did, but it wasn't a full-blown sponsored because of COVID. It was restricted, but we still got, you know, we had, I don't know, 16 T6s there, and I don't know how many Stearman, but several Stearman there. It was still a lot of fun and very productive. And now we've got Tallulah, Vicksburg, Culpeper, and they, because of the fires and the COVID issues out in California, they started off at Castle Air Force Base, and then they moved somewhere else and eventually wound up at Thermal, California, and they wound up having a great, productive clinic. They had to move their venue twice because of California fire, smoke, and or COVID issues. But they, you know, they persevered and got her done, and that's just the American spirit. I don't care what anybody says. You know, we're going to fly. NATA, as you know, is North American Products, T6s, T28s, B25s, and Mustangs. And, you know, we talk about, you know, the jets, and we've not had any jets participate in our stuff because they're limited and they're costly. And if they fly, they usually fly with a jet group. But at any rate, guys, like you say, start out in either a Champ or a Cub, and eventually go to maybe a 180 like I did, have a 180, something like that with a little bit more performance, step up to the T6, sponsor a T6 in the CAF, for instance. And back when I was coming up, it was 200 hours required to get it, you know, qualified in the Mustang and the fighters. They've reduced that now with some other caveats that, you know, you can reduce it with some other experience under your belt. That's a good progression to learn to fly formation, is in that time when you start in your T6 and you get your time ready for flying fighters. a lot of guys, they get to T6, they're happy, and that's what they like to do. And it's a great airplane. I love the T6 too. I do. And I enjoy it. I enjoy flying formation in it. I enjoy teaching in it. And, but the guys need to get to the T6 or something equivalent in another organization, so they can start to fly formation. They need, 25, 30 hours in the airplane, so they at least know the airplane pretty well. I don't recommend anyone trying to come to a clinic with, like 5 hours in the airplane. I really think they need to get some experience. So, because this can be like drinking out of a fire hose when you first start flying formation, because it's just not natural to come at an airplane like that, at a rapid rate and be able to control it. We spend all of our time teaching guys to stay away from other airplanes, and then here you are, merging with them. So, but that's the natural progression. Yeah, she has done a fantastic job editing this magazine, and she gets all the kudos. She's a firecracker, and sometimes I have to put the brakes on her just a little bit, but she will have me proofread everything in that magazine. If I miss something, oh me, she's on me like, but I like stuff to be correct in the magazine too. I mean, even, to the nth degree, because that just shows our professionalism, I think, and our dedication. But kudos to her in her production of the magazine. It's been fabulous. And I've gotten nothing but accolades throughout NATA, about that. So, and for the clinics as well, everybody that's been doing clinics, really worked hard to make it done professionally, and we get good comments from those as well. I've got to be honest with you. I initially wasn't looking to do it, but a lot of my proteges came to me and asked me to please do it. And they made a lot of the same comments that you just did, as far as trying to treat everybody equally. And it's important in an organization like this that, and like Chuck Marshall, our Secretary of Treasury, he says, everybody knows. And he says, you can deal with people. And, we're human. There's always going to be someone that's not happy with what you do, but sometimes you just have to do what you got to do. That's the right thing for the organization, and go with it. But I've always felt that I want to treat anyone else like I want to be treated. And that's a pretty simple rule, and it really works. So that's going to. The meeting that you're referring to was a formation committee meeting, and it's FAST, which actually governs the formation qualifications and certifications of the people that fly formation in the United States. FAST is our intermediary to the FAA. They established the FAST way back in Galveston at one of the first NWAC meetings, and the FAA kind of basically told the industry, "Hey guys, if you don't get it together and start, getting standards established and teaching each other how to do this properly," but it just had gotten to the point where there were a lot of the guys that were doing that initially were World War II guys. They knew how to do it. They were really good, and were doing it. But the influx of the new guys that hadn't flown in the military and or had training that's where they really needed to work. So that's why you have meetings at NWAC like that, and we try to talk about issues that we're having that's pro and con, and develop better procedures to keep us all on the same page. When we put the new engine in over the winter, when we put the heads and banks on, the seals, the tube seals where the oil drains back down into the engine from the heads, were not the proper seals, obviously, because they leaked pretty bad, and the leak just progressively got worse and worse. And by the time we got the airplane back from AOD last week, it was bathed in oil, and that's not a Mustang. And we said the airplane's grounded, and we're going to paint right after Vicksburg, and we can't have oil on the airplane for paint. So we collectively sat down and said, okay, we're going to fix this thing, and we're going to have to get after it and get with it. And one of the bigger challenges, Jerry Mason, our main mechanic, came down lame with the right knee, and one of his knees gave out on him. So two of us started tearing the airplane down by ourselves under his supervision. And then we borrowed the guy that helped Jerry overhaul the engine over Saturday and Sunday to pull the heads and banks physically off, redo the seals, seat the pistons back in the heads and banks, in the cylinders, and at least get them seated, and then we could take back over reassembling. So we started on Thursday morning of last week, and we finished yesterday at about noon, and I flew it at about 2 o'clock. I'll just tell you what I have a granddaughter that is 14 years old, and I'm not even going any further than that, but I just tell her, I said, honey, do me a favor, and she and I are really close. She's been close since she was a baby. Do yourself a favor. Make sure you look at both sides of an issue. Don't let someone just convince you that one side is correct. Examine it. Read it, reason about it. Just because mom says it's good or grandpa says it's good, you need to read, research, and decide for yourself. Don't let someone else make your decision for you. And that's what I think is one of the biggest issues with the youth today. They've got to educate themselves, not just read something on their iPhone and just accept it as truth. And we all know how much, anybody can post anything that's just as backwards and untrue as possible. And there's a lot of truth posted on the internet. But you've got to do your research and do your due diligence to make a decision in your life, and live with your decision, and know that, there are consequences from every decision you make. And that's what I try to teach young men that come around here, and I've got a young man that's taking flying lessons here. He kind of just latched on to me, and then he bought an airplane ride in the Mustang, and he kind of sees me as a father figure because he lost his father when he was young. And I take the time to sit down and counsel him. And if these kids will just listen to you, you can do a lot with them. They have to have an open mind to listen, and you can do so much for them if they just listen. At the end of the day, that's what we're out to do, is do what's best for NATA, or what's best for the CAF, or what's best for Warbirds of America. You have to make those hard decisions sometimes, and it's not going to be popular all the time. just the way it is.